everybody. Happy midday of the first day of the conference. We've made it 1/4 of the way through. My name is David Griesing. I'm here to talk to you today about the role our schools should be playing to help students to live productive lives by finding work that can fulfill them when they leave school. We give our students a lot of information. Sometimes we even help them feel good about themselves. But when they leave school for the so-called real world, too many of them find themselves without a roadmap for living or for working for the rest of their lives. Too many of them enter the world unprepared for its challenges and to seize its opportunities. I think we all know this. So what should we do about it? I have several thoughts about this that I'd like to share with you today. We teach our kids a lot of things in school, but the information is all over the place. You know what I mean when I talk about disparate pieces of information that we give our students in the classroom. How to write, how to calculate, how to read critically, and outside of the classroom, how to play fair in a team sport, how to run a social event, or raise money for a good cause. Sure, there's some overlap, and there's a little overlap on this slide, even among courses that are the same. So one English course may overlap a little bit with another, but how much are we bringing this information together in a comprehensible way? And the answer is not very much. I'm talking about what one subject has to do with another and how all of this information connects up in a meaningful way in the lives of kids. How much are we as educators helping our kids to connect these dots? What are we doing to help them make sense of their learning experience as a whole so they can apply that understanding to their lives so that they can have toolboxes for living? What are we doing as educators to help kids put the disparate pieces together into a plan they can use to plot their lives after school? How are we helping kids connect all these dots in a way that's meaningful for them? How are we helping kids to put together what they've learned in a meaningful way so they have toolboxes for living? The answer is not that we're not helping them. The answer is that we're not helping them nearly enough. The result is that too many of our kids are failing to launch, a memorable phrase by Stanford education professor William Damon. Providing this roadmap is not just something for our counselors and our guidance people. It's a group effort for all of us as teachers, and we all need to be contributing to it. Here are some thoughts on how we can be more hopeful and more helpful to our kids in terms of preparing them for their futures. As we all know, what's most important to an individual student is his or her values and how those values contribute to a student's self-esteem. What our kids stand for has everything to do with how they feel about themselves at the core. So a proper role for schools and a proper role for us as teachers is to nurture those things, particularly the positive things that our kids believe in at a gut level. This kind of nurturing can be particularly powerful when we help our kids to clarify what they believe in and to learn how to act on their values. Nothing we can do for them would enable them more. Unfortunately, more and more kids are coming to school with no understanding of their values at all. There are several reasons for this. Over the past 40 years, the traditional handers down of values are either no longer doing so, are reluctant to do so, or have far less influence. You all know what I mean. Civic institutions are no longer at the center of our culture. We are skeptical and suspicious of political and business leaders, where once we looked up to them for guidance on how to live and how to act. I'm from Philadelphia. If any of you are familiar with what's going on in the state of Pennsylvania, we are now in several months into child sex abuse scandals involving the church, and we've seen the demolition in many regards of the Penn State football program. It seems like only yesterday that we once looked to priests and winning football coaches as role models. The problem is that our skepticism about moral authorities has left us suspicious of everything to do with values, and I believe that that has to change. As families, we are rarely present for our children without a screen between us. Again, you know what I'm talking about. This means that we rarely have time to talk with one another as families about the news, about troubling events, about what we should think about them, about how we should be responding to them, what's the right thing to do. How many of us as families talk to our children about the deaths in Aurora, Colorado, about gun violence or mental illness, or even gun violence and mental illness in a film called Dark Knight? How will our children understand these things if we don't help them to understand? Unfortunately, families are playing a far less active role than ever in the transmission of the parents' values to children, and these are the children who are coming into our schools today. Political forces have also made us uncomfortable talking about values. You've all seen pictures like this, and if you're anything like I am, you're alarmed by them. It is very, very sad to me that the discussion about values has been hijacked in our society. What this means for us is that we don't want to be accused as teachers of indoctrinating students with our beliefs, so we avoid having these discussions altogether. Fear of influencing with our values has made us unwilling to help students identify their values. You can have a safe discussion about values with kids if you avoid foisting your own value judgments and your own value systems upon them. It's a little like safe sex and keeping your germs to yourself. This was an image that apparently Adam Bellow never came upon in terms of his presentation. Anyway, value discussions once took place in all of our schools. All of our parents had value discussions in their classrooms. Maybe some of you early on in your education also had this kind of training. But armed with a healthy skepticism over the past 40 years, we can have that discussion in a different way today, and for the sake of our kids, we have to have it. I've studied ethics most of my life and have been trying to figure out how to apply them to daily life for a long time. In other words, something I call practical ethics, and other people call it the same thing. In my last couple of minutes with you, I'd like to offer some highly practical food for thought on how we can give students tools and information to improve their value awareness and enable students to plan more effectively for their work and their lives when school is over. I believe that if we do so, our kids will be better able to launch themselves into fulfilling work and satisfying lives. Let's start with value awareness. There are easy-to-use tools to improve an individual student's value awareness. For example, we could have students identify their important values with a tool like the Rokeach Value Survey. After taking the survey, we could ask our kids to talk about and write about why the values they chose are important to them given their lives thus far, and why some of the other values are less important. We can give students the opportunity to read about and discuss famous individuals, but also individuals in their own communities who are living their values, and then take a look at those people and try to determine what they did on a day-to-day basis when they went to work every day. How does living your values as a famous person or a person who's getting awards, how does that look day to day? And how can kids start envisioning what their lives might look like if they were doing something similar? We can give our students exercises to identify what these futures might look like for them if their values were at the center of their lives and at the center of their work. By doing so, we'd be helping them figure out what's important to them and to look to the future as something that's worth looking forward to. I have a 22-year-old. As a consequence of that, I have heard more stories of kids who are afraid to enter the real world than I ever thought was possible. The optimism that I felt that I enjoyed as a student doesn't seem to be the optimism that's shared among students today, and it's profoundly saddening to me. And it's not simply because there aren't a lot of jobs in the economy. It's for precisely the reasons, I think it's for precisely the reasons that I'm talking about. This kind of self-learning process can help students have greater clarity about who they are, so they begin to cultivate the deep-seated commitments, the fuel, if you will, that can help to propel them into the future. I put a rocket ship on this slide because I believe that values are that fuel. The second tool I'd like to recommend for your consideration is what I call a personal business plan. A student's future orientation can be taken to another level of specificity by giving that student a chance to prepare a plan like this at several stages of her education, so that her evolving value commitments, skill sets, and knowledge come together several times over the course of school as she thinks about real work and what she's going to be doing with the rest of her life. As I've noted above, it's an exercise in which each student identifies what it is they want to do, and I'm not talking about pie in the sky here, I'm talking about real jobs in the real world, things that they believe that they would be interested in doing and could make a contribution doing, why they want to do those things. This is where the value piece comes into the discussion. What is it about them that makes them think that doing this kind of work and living this kind of life will bring them a sense of fulfillment that many of those kids don't have a feeling they're going to find today? What skills have they developed in the course of their education and outside of their education that they can bring to their lives so that they can make a difference? And what roles have they played in the course of exercising those skills where they can demonstrate that they've had some experience doing it and have some self-confidence that they can do it again? As with any plan, this one will change, and the best ones change over time, many, many times. That's why we've got all the crumpled pieces of paper here. Any of you who have done a plan really works when it goes through lots of iterations. It never works if it sits on a desk someplace. But when we're providing the right kind of guidance to our students, the plans they write will help them to face their futures with far more certainty and optimism than I believe they're facing them today. What I've outlined here today is just an outline. I love some of the comments earlier today by Dean Sharsky about a blog being an opportunity for conversation. I've written about a number of these things in my blog, and I invite you to come onto it and leave your comments so that I can get smarter about these things and I can learn more about what you're seeing in the particular trenches that you're in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming to New York City. My website is myname.com. I really, really look forward to hearing from you. Thanks a lot.